A week away. It's Tuesday, isn't it? Welcome to our Tuesday meditation session at our Dhammakaya Centre, London, in Woking. Hope you're all having a good week so far. I've been away myself for a couple of weeks, and I feel as if I'm the one that needs welcoming back. Is there anyone here for the first time? Oh wow, we've got a few. Would you like to share your names with us, please? If you don't. Sally, welcome, Sally. Arterius. Welcome, Arterius. And Diane. Welcome, Diane. Welcome to you all. Just some protocols for the evening, especially for the new folks. Fire exits are in the four corners of the temple, to the rear and to the front. To the rear, there's the toilets for females and males. The session normally starts with a meditation session. Ladies, we normally ask that you wear a cloth over your laps out of a mark of respect for the monk and the Lord Buddha. Okay, while that's happening. And also, we normally do filming and take pictures for promotion for the temple. But if you do not want to be included in the photos or pictures, do let us know beforehand, and we'll omit you from the filming. As I say, the session normally takes two halves: a meditation session, followed by a talk or some instruction, guidance from the teaching monk. I think I've covered everything. At the end of the session, feel free to leave a donation if you wish. There's a donation box on the right towards the front of the temple. Help yourself to water before the session starts if you would like to have a drink. And also, mobile phones, please do check them and have them on silent before the session starts. And again, a warm welcome to everyone, and without further ado, I'll welcome Praja and Nicholas to start the session for us. We normally start by paying respects to the Lord Buddha by bowing 3 times. For those who would like to do so, please pay respects to the Lord Buddha by bowing 3 times. Bow, bow, bow. And also we pay respects to the teaching monk by bowing 3 times. Bow, bow, bow.
So welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening meditation class. And for those of you who are new or unfamiliar, I will start by giving a little brief introduction to meditation for those who are new to it. Then we will meditate for about half an hour, as we do each Tuesday night, and after that, I have a wisdom talk prepared for you, which today is about having merits in your past. And at the end, there's an opportunity for any questions, comments, or feedback which you might want to share as well. So we should wrap up by about 8:30. For those of you who've not meditated here before, meditation is a method of working with the mind, which is a part of ourselves that is often neglected. Especially the way we live our lives these days, we often find that our mind is taken hostage by all the small, medium and large devices that tend to occupy our attention to the point that we don't have much time or awareness left over for ourselves sometimes, or for the more important questions in our lives, like ultimately where we're headed or how to make life more meaningful. So meditation liberates our awareness by allowing it to return from all the things out there to a place within ourselves, somewhere where it's closer to home and somewhere within the space of the body. Because if body and mind can be in the same place, then, at least for part of our lives, then it gets the chance to recharge the batteries of the mind and to allow us to calm down and to have a mind that's more free of thought, to allow us to relax when we need to. And I'm not saying that being attentive to the things around us is not a good thing, but you also need to have some downtime in order to restore the balance of body and mind. And there's a place within the body where if body and mind can be brought into balance, then it's particularly effective for helping the mind to go deeper and to discover and benefit from the wisdom that already lies within us, but which we often don't make much use of. So the place I'm talking about is this place down on the level of the diaphragm, which you can see also in the picture, at our solar plexus, where if the awareness can be brought to that point, the longer it's there, and the more it's able to restore the quality of the mind. The question is, when the mind itself is invisible to us, it's not something we can detect physically, how on earth can we work with it in order to get it to be where we want it to go? And the way that we traditionally work with the mind in this meditation center is by means of what's known as visualization, which means conjuring up a picture or a feeling in the mind, which, if we can take that picture or feeling and bring it to the center of our body, then the mind will follow as well. So the sort of picture you might use for this task might be something bright and circular, perhaps like the sun shining, or a full moon, or a star, or perhaps a diamond. Or if you can see the crystal ball behind me, then you might like to imagine that, something similar. And you imagine the picture as if it is at the center of your body. If it's a feeling, then you feel that that object is at the center of your body as a presence there. If the mind wanders away from the center of the body, then you just bring it back to the picture. Very simple. As the possible problem of there being thoughts in the mind, some people have more thoughts than others. But if you find that ignoring the thoughts doesn't work for you, as might happen with sediment in a barrel, if you leave it unstirred for long enough, then the thoughts will settle, in theory. Some people have a more serious case of thoughts than that, in which case you might need to make use of what's known as a mantra, which is some words that pass repeatedly through your mind, not out loud, but just through your imagination again. And the words that we use as a mantra here are those words you can see spelled out there, Samma Arahang, which means a pure state of mind achieved in the proper way. So with or without a mantra to dispel the thoughts, leave you with just that bright, clear object at the center of yourself. So far so good. As for the sitting position, some people like to sit on the floor, in which case you sit in a half lotus position. If you're sitting on a chair, then generally the best sort of chair is one which is straight-backed, because it gives you an upright posture. And the way to put your hands together, whether you're sitting on the floor or on a chair, is with the right hand on top of the left hand, index finger of the right hand up against the thumb of the left hand, and your hands just rest palm upwards in your lap. So if you're ready, so far so good, then we will make ourselves comfortable for about half an hour of meditation now. So we start by settling ourselves into a comfortable posture for our meditation. closing our eyes as gently as possible. We allow our breath to become slow and deep, and make a check of the whole of our body to be sure that each and every muscle is properly relaxed, all the way from the top of our head, right the way down to the tips of our toes, with nowhere in between harboring any stress or tension anymore. So the whole of our body feels light in weight. From there we turn our attention inwards to put ourselves back in touch with our inner state. The sense of warmth or well-being inside us, which again can be relaxed further if we're able to let go for a few moments of all the possible worries or concerns in our lives. Gathering our attention back from any possible distractions in the outside world to a place of serenity on the inside. And re-engaging with a sense of joy and happiness inside us, while allowing the same feeling to grow and spread throughout our body and mind. And inside our body we imagine it's just an empty space, or as if our whole body has been transformed into a sort of bubble with nothing on the inside. Or equally as if our whole body has disappeared completely, leaving some great empty space. And we're going to allow our mind to reconnect with that special place inside us, which feels like the point of greatest contentment. Somewhere in the general area of our diaphragm, and maintaining our attention there as continuously as we can, for as long as we can, not letting our attention slip away to anything else. If you already have an inner object of some sort in your mind, you can adopt that as your focus for meditation. If you don't seem to have anything obvious to focus upon, you can always start by conjuring up one of your own, possibly a visual object or one that you can feel inside you. And as I mentioned earlier, that object should be something bright, round, maybe like the sun shining, yellow, gold, or orange in color, maybe like the full moon. A shining star which is gently twinkling, or perhaps something like a diamond in the mind with its own special sparkle. If your attention wanders away to other things, you simply bring it back again as soon as you realize. And don't be perturbed if your mind wanders repeatedly. It's just a case of bringing it back again and again, until little by little, keeping the mind centered becomes second nature to us. Keep our attention always at the center of whatever we can perceive inside us, not as if we were looking down on the object, but as if we were actually down there ourselves, as if we have shifted the whole of our mental office down from the level of our brain to that place at the center of our stomach, with all perception, memory, thought and cognition at the same place at our center, actually within the object that we perceive. If our thoughts return, we do our best to ignore them, to let them die down, to leave a sense of silence in the mind, silence in which there is nothing but our inner object as the total focus of our attention. If we rest our mind gently, continuously, there'll be a sense in which it's almost like threading a needle. So an extreme lightness of touch, which can allow the mind to reach through to the other side. If we can achieve this level of finesse, we'll start to see the center of the body as being much more than just a point in the mind. It's actually like the trailhead for a pathway that leads the mind deeper. So we cultivate our attention in this way, lightly, gently, keeping our mind on track by means of our inner object, while discouraging any thoughts from arising in the mind, and touching gently at the center of our inner experience, allowing the mind to go deeper for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. We continue to keep our mind on track at the center of the body as continuously as we can for as long as we can. We find our mind wanders away from the center of the body each time we realize. We simply bring our awareness back again to the inner object as before. If the inner object disappears, we can think of a new one. But if it changes, we just follow it in its new form. If there are still thoughts arising in the mind, we do our best to ignore them, not to encourage them, not to elaborate on them. And only if the thoughts are really too many to ignore, might we make use of that traditional mantra, the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again. Continuing to maintain our mind at a standstill at the center of the body for a few more moments in silence until we come to time for our loving kindness meditation. We continue to keep our mind on track at the center of the body the whole of the time, lightly, gently and continuously, always at the center of whatever inner experience we've built up for ourselves as a result of our meditation so far this session. For some people, the inner experience will amount to a sense of brightness at the center of oneself. For others, it may be more of a feeling like a sense of well-being, again centered at the seventh base of the mind. For others still, it may be images, large or small, centered around the middle of our body. Sometimes small like objects, sometimes much larger like whole vistas or panoramas, where we're actually smaller than the images we see. Whatever inner experience we have, we touch our mind gently at our center, so gently that it's almost as if we were hardly touching at all. Touching with the lightness of a warm fingertip, resting on the surface of some new fallen snow. Touching the snow so gently that there'll be a melting away at the point of contact, where solid becomes liquid and liquid becomes vapor, spreading outwards, rarefying outwards and spreading like the ripples on the surface of a pond, ever wider from the point of contact. In this way we extend our inner experience initially to the whole of ourselves, filling ourselves with the light or that sense of well-being, or expanding the inner picture to fill the whole of our body by a process known as the spreading of loving kindness. We make the affirmation at the center of ourselves that, may I be well and happy, free from all suffering. And then we extend the same loving kindness beyond the boundaries of our own being, outwards into the room around us, extending outwards in all directions around us like a halo or an aura, to encapsulate all the sentient beings around us in the room where we're sitting for meditation. And we start to return some of the benefits of the meditation to the world around us by making the affirmation at the center of ourselves that, may all the living beings here in this room be well and happy, free from suffering, and live together in peace and harmony. We extend our loving kindness further outwards to the whole building, wider to the whole neighborhood, outwards to the whole borough, and to the city limits, almost as if we're extending our loving kindness across a map seen in bird's eye view, in ever-widening circles around us, taking in all the sentient beings with the wish that, may all these beings be well and happy, live in harmony and peace. Especially at this time when so many people feel isolated or pinned down by negativity, we extend our loving kindness as a torrent of peace, a cool tide, extending outwards to bring happiness where there is suffering, and to increase the happiness where happiness is scarce. So wider still to the whole of the southeast, the whole of England, British Isles, the whole of Europe, with the wish that all living beings here on this continent be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony. And wider still to all the continents of the world, as if we were extending loving kindness across the entire face of this planet, with the affirmation at the center of ourselves that, may all living beings, whether on the land, in the air, or in the sea, be touched by our loving kindness, that these living beings may be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony. That world peace become a reality within our own lifetimes. And we can spread loving kindness in all the 6 great directions, almost as if we were extending a beam of loving kindness outwards into the universe around us, to the front and to the back without limits, to the right and to the left without boundaries, above and below without end, extending loving kindness to all the living beings here in the universe, so that no living being, without exception, is left untouched by our loving kindness. Again, with the same wish for living beings to be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony. For the last few moments of our practice, we can extend the loving kindness toward particular loved ones, those whom we might be thinking about, by holding them close within the brightness or our sense of well-being at the center of ourselves, thinking of their name or their face, sending loving kindness to them in particular, especially if we are separated by huge distances. Extending loving kindness for those for whom we feel a particular debt of gratitude, toward those still living, or even to those who have already passed, trusting that the purity of our loving kindness can extend across the huge gulfs of space and time to reach those loved ones wherever they are to be found. So we extend our loving kindness in this way for the last few moments of our practice together, for a few more moments in silence. Pe Buddha Panapatta Pace Kananchayam Palang Arahantananja Te Jena Rakam Bandabi Sapaso Sapa Buddha Nupavena Sapa Dhamma Nupavena Sapa Sankha Nupavena Satha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So I hope the meditation went all right for everyone today, especially for those of you who were new to it. Not too difficult? Yes, no? Yes, it was great. Difficult? So, for example, when you closed your eyes, did you have something you could focus on? Yeah, so that's a good start already. Something that you can see or something that you can feel. Yeah? And it might wander off, but you can bring it back, I hope. And did you notice that you start off with one thing and it sort of changes to something else? Okay, so it's like there's something going on there. So this is what it's about. You sort of give it that opportunity, and if you have the chance to meditate further, perhaps remembering the technique and finding 20 minutes of free time at home, then this would gradually become easier. Yes, that's the idea of it anyway. So today I have prepared a little talk for you, which is about merits, which means positivity in our mind and in our lives. And it comes in the context of a series of talks which I've been giving over the last few weeks, which are like a staircase of things which bring fortune to our lives in a way that starts with simple and obvious things and works towards more esoteric ones. And today we come to the fifth step of a total of about 38. And what has come before, for those of you who haven't been following each one, was talking about the influence of our environment on our ability to pick up good habits and a sense of positive direction in our lives. So a good upbringing, good surroundings, probably makes a lot of sense in developmental psychology. It would be known as the nurture aspects of our lives. So the other things which people teach us and help to bring out in us. But there's also another aspect which we bring to the table, which are the things already in us, the things which we bring with us into the world. And in Western science, then mostly we would think of these things in terms of heredity. Got good chromosomes. If it's an animal, you might think of a great pedigree. But within the context of Buddhism, we think of it more as the good karma which we bring into the world from our past. And this is really what I'm talking about today, partly from the aspect of what we have in our past, and partly from the aspect of if what we have in our past is not so great, then how can we add to it? And the sort of code name for this sort of practices and the results of such practices is the word merits, which may not be the greatest of translations, but unfortunately we add to what has come before a lot with the study of Buddhism through the medium of the English language. So we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of making up a whole new vocabulary sometimes. So, this idea of merits in our past. You can talk about such things as merits rather than being just something good or wholesome, because it's known to be something that generates something like a positive energy in our lives. Merit is a traditional translation which comes from the Buddhist Pali word punya, or in the Thai language boon. And the word merit in English can sometimes be a little bit confusing because it makes us think of being honored or praised or approved by a third person. However, all that's intended by the word merit in this particular case is the fact that it is deserved somehow. So it occurs spontaneously without a third party needing to award it to us. And the general definition is it's a result of doing something good in your life. Some things in our life we think are under our control or are down to our choices, whereas other things in our life seem to be beyond our control. So if we are confronted by an unavoidable disaster, we are reliant on factors that go beyond what we can see with the naked eye. If we fall ill, of course we trust the doctor is going to be able to help us, but even the best of doctors cannot help every patient in every case. There's always something else hidden away behind the scenes which is helping in the background. Even in the same situation, for people who've got more of this special merit energy, the troubles in their lives seem to pass them by, leaving them unscathed. Whereas for other people who seem to lack such merit, the trouble may be very serious for them. So this special thing called merit is pretty important. It may not be at the forefront of our 7 habits for highly effective people, but it's certainly important for happiness beyond the normal material definitions. So before we understand how merit works, perhaps it's useful to backtrack slightly to what we understand by the mind. And often what we mean by the mind is not our brain, it's not our nervous system, but it's more like our sense of awareness or our sense of attention, the focus of our attention. In Pali terminology, it's known as citta or vijnana. And if you were to be able to see it, then it would be a disembodied version of it, might be something like a will-o'-the-wisp, sort of a sphere of light that sort of floats around. But the one that we each personally have is generally or ideally located within the space of our body. And in its natural state, it would take the form of a clear sphere of diamond brightness. However, when it's polluted by ideas of greed or hatred or delusion in our lives, then it loses its brightness and is relegated to a sense of dullness or weakened potential. But whenever there's merit in our lives, then it is lightened up by that for a moment. Everything that is dynamic in the world relies on some sort of energy or food to keep it going. And Buddhists believe that the energy that keeps the mind going, or this spiritual aspect of ourselves, is the merit or positive karma that arises from good things that we do in our lives. So it would occur spontaneously in the mind for a person who does a good deed without a third person needing to observe the fact it's being done. It's just like a stone thrown up in the air must come down again. In the same way, if you do something good, then that energy must be produced as a result of that goodness. It's an automatic response to the ethical goodness of that activity. And when that energy arises, it can be stored up in the mind. And it acts as a sort of storehouse which can communicate the fact of a good aspect of a good deed being done to another time at a point in the future when it can give its results somehow. So it stores up that information in a way that it can communicate it to a time further off in the future. Yeah? So the link in the causal chain is known as merit. So if you were an advanced meditator and you had a good and close relationship with what is going on in your mind, then you would actually be able to see what that merit is like. However, most normal meditators only really see something like a shadow of the merit rather than the merit itself. And we can only deduce its effects from the things that happen in our lives. It works a little bit like electricity, which we know is there in the background. It runs through all the cables. It causes effects in our lives, whether it's heat from a bar fire or an electric shock. If we touch a live wire, it causes light from a light bulb. It causes coolness in a fridge. It causes movement in an electric motor. But we're happy to use all the great effects of electricity without actually seeing the electricity itself. And rather, in the same way, we benefit a lot from the effects of merit in our lives without really seeing or directly observing what is causing that in the background of our lives. What we might have, especially as meditators, is from time to time we have a warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside, a sense of joy when we are able to do something good, let's say, for another person. You know, we're good to another person, but we also feel good about it. And there's a tangible feeling that we have on the inside when we do that. Sometimes it's almost worth making another person happy because we feel happy about it ourselves. And that warm, fuzzy feeling is a manifestation of merit at work in our mind. Probably the most direct way of sensing it that most of us are used to. So, having looked at the word merit, maybe we need to look a little bit at what we mean by our past. Because when we're talking about merits in our past, the word past might apply to anything in your personal history, whether it means yesterday or many years ago. And you can divide up your past into two broad periods: your recent past, which might be any time from yesterday back to the time you were born, and your recent past, and this is like within the context of Buddhism and rebirth and stuff, would mean any time before that. So anything good which you've done in your childhood, helping your parents around the house, charitable deeds you've done as an adult, recent past. Your distant past might refer to any experiences up to the time that you entered the womb on the most recent lifetime, whether it's last lifetime or hundreds of lifetimes before that. So, what are the characteristics of this special energy? We know it's distilled in the mind of a person who does something good, rather than coming to the person next to them. So there's a sense of ownership of that deed. And it happens as soon as the action is completed. Once the merit arises in the mind, that it will stay there, even beyond the grave, until it's used up. And merit has the effect of gradually improving the quality of the mind, accumulating according to the scriptural metaphor which you find in the Dhammakaya, which says that you should not think lightly of doing good, imagining a little will not affect me. Just as a water jar is filled up by falling drops of rain, also the wise one is filled up with merit by accumulating it little by little. So merit is constantly used up just by going through life. So if it's not replenished, then in theory it can run out. And people who are unfortunate to experience that may feel like the whole bottom has fallen out of their life, or they just knock sideways in life. That would be the sort of thing Buddhists would believe equates with merit in one's life having run out. Yeah. The amount of merit accrued by any particular deed, like karma in general, it tends to be in proportion to the not just the extent of the deed, but also the strength of the intention, the amount of effort put into the action, and the amount of gratitude involved with producing that action. This means, paradoxically, if we think we are getting more merit, then we will actually increase the amount of merit. You follow me? If you believe that you're getting a lot of merit from doing something good, you actually get more merit than the person who does it in a very sort of skeptical way. Yeah? So it's very subjective, but it still counts. Okay? Merit has the effect for the doer of attracting favorable circumstances on 4 different levels. Level of the mind, which we've seen already, warm fuzzy feeling. Level of the personality, level of lifestyle, and level of society at large. Although it takes longer to filter its way through to the personality and lifestyle and society, of course. You can also categorize merit according to how the characteristics of how long it lasts in the mind. Generally, merit will run down. I just said that you accumulate it, it's stored in the mind for a little while, and then it runs down. But there's also forms of merit that stay longer in the mind. The forms that come and go are known as mundane merit, and this is generally the sort that people are familiar with. So it's like a tank of petrol, which you have to fill up, and it has a limited range. However, there are other sorts of merit, generally merits which are particularly powerful for whatever reason, often merits that arise as a result of a very pure mind, like an attainment in meditation, which once you get it, it's like you never slip back from it again. So this sort of transcendental merit also exists as well, but it's rarer to find. It generally results from having uprooted some sort of impurities from the mind on a more permanent level. So, science would generally attribute differences between newborn children to heredity. And this works well for some physical attributes, hair color or whatever, but doesn't work well for other things like intelligence, let's say. Buddhists, as I've said, tend to believe less in the genome, but more in terms of the actions in a person's past. And this historical store of merit is known as old merit, because it's like a down payment which you bring with you into the present life, to which new merit is added by the intentional, wholesome things which you do recently, or you've done recently. And there's an interesting allusion to this old merit versus new merit in a scriptural account of an old man known as Migara. Got a picture? Who appeared complacent in their old merit without bothering to accumulate any new merit. So Migara is the old guy in the picture. And he had a daughter-in-law who is very famous in Buddhism, known as Lady Visakha, who had recently married into the family. And she was a very enthusiastic person about doing all sorts of meritorious deeds in her life, like supporting the monks. And there was a little bit of a family conflict going on because she was very much into supporting the monks and so on, whereas Mr. Migara, although he was quite wealthy, but he never really gave much to support any of the spiritual communities. So one day, the father-in-law, Migara, saw a monk walking past the window on his arms round with the bowl while he was having his breakfast. And normally, a normal charitable person would have the thought, oh, well, let me share some of the food which I have for my breakfast with a monk who has nothing to eat. But instead he just turned his back and continued eating his breakfast. Therefore, he got no merit from this opportunity on this particular day. And his daughter-in-law saw this, and she wasn't really in a position to say anything, because she's like new in the family, and like you have to suck up to your in-laws like you do in most cultures in the world. So she didn't say anything directly, but she muttered under her breath, my father-in-law is eating stale fare. Let's say it again. My father-in-law is eating stale fare. Which is shorthand for saying that her father-in-law was living off his past merits. The food he's eating is perfectly good, okay? But he's living off his past merits, not making any new merits. Yeah. So a person is not complacent about the advantages brought to them by their old merit. They should try to add new, fresh merits in the present lifetime as much as possible. And this is how to build on the good fortune which you already may have in life. And in order to do this, then it's important to understand the practicality of cultivating new or additional merits in life. And we need to take care when we're studying about merits that we don't take a very superficial or simplistic understanding of how merits work, because some people assume that if they do something good, then they should immediately get something good back out of it. Yeah? That's a simplistic way of understanding this. And I had the experience going back to about 2004. I was posted in Manchester at that time. Our temple in Manchester in those days was not in its present site. It was in a very run-down rental property in a really bad area of Salford. So one day, a temple supporter who was very new to Buddhism, and he'd done a lot to help to buy supplies and support the temple. However, it turned out that one day, when he was attending a ceremony at the temple, someone broke into his car and stole things out of the car. And he concluded that merit was not working, and he became really disheartened and disillusioned with the whole sort of temple thing, because he didn't think that he deserved to get his stuff stolen. Yeah? Are you like that? Would you be like that? Are you listening for car alarms already? Okay. And he had the very sensible idea that if he'd just recently done something very good, then how could such a bad thing happen to him? Because normally the result of giving good deeds is that your belongings ought to be sort of protected from anyone who wants to sort of steal them from you. However, his thinking was rather simplistic, and we have to accept that meritorious deeds, or the lack of them, that come to us at any time might be a mixture of recent new merits, which is what he would obviously done, but there may also be old merits which are creeping in from the past, which we have no idea about. And in this connection, there's another little scriptural story I'll tell you. I don't have a picture, unfortunately. It's of a temple supporter known as Mahagala, again from the time of the Buddha, and every day he used to bring food to the temple. And this is a slightly more extreme example than getting your car broken into, okay. But he'd bring food for the Buddha every day, and it turned out that he was very popular and well known about the temple. And one day he just stepped outside the temple gates, having given food to the monastic community, and is washing his face in a pool in the front of the temple. And just at that time, a whole squad of the king's guard mistook him for a thief and bludgeoned him to death, like you do. Well, maybe not here, but... and the problem was that the real thief had just recently run through that very place and stashed all the stuff which he'd nicked from the palace in the reeds or whatever, just next to where this guy was washing his face. So the army, being sort of fairly limited in their ability to make connections, saw the money and the guy and immediately thought, we got him. So everyone felt really bad about this, like people in the temple generally do when anything bad happens to their supporters. And this news of the untimely death of Mr. Mahakala reached the ears of the Buddha, and all the monks were saying, well, it's not fair, and like, this shouldn't happen to such a great guy. And the Buddha said to them in quite a sort of measured sort of way, it's not deserving of what he has done in the present lifetime, but it does befit what he did in a previous lifetime. And the Buddha went on to reveal the man's past. And the lifetime before, he hadn't been quite such a great guy. He had actually been a guard in a forest outpost. And at that time, there was a couple traveling through the forest, and they asked to stay the night before continuing their journey. And the wife of the couple was quite attractive, and the guard coveted her. So, with the unwholesome intention, the guard planted his own jewels in the husband's luggage, and then kicked up a big fuss saying, "Oh, my jewels have disappeared. Quickly search the whole place and see if we can find the culprit." And of course the jewels turned up exactly where he had put them, in the husband's luggage. So the guard accused the husband of having stolen the jewels and had him executed for the crime. So this is why being put to death was not appropriate for what he had done in the most recent lifetime, but it was appropriate for what had happened in the lifetime before. So this is why we can't afford to be simplistic in our understanding of merits, even if we want to believe in it. So, how do we accumulate such merits? In Buddhism, there is a summary of 10 different ways, major ways in order to accumulate merit in life, which are known as Punya Kiriya Watu. They're found mostly in the commentaries, Su Mangala Vilasini and Abhidhammata Sangaha commentaries. These 10 can be broken down into 3 broad headings. The broad headings are generosity, self-discipline, and mental cultivation, which you could regard as different flavors of merit, or which give different flavors of meritorious outcomes. Generosity generally emphasizes material prosperity as its outcomes. Self-discipline, or keeping the precepts, emphasizes health or beauty as its outcomes, and mental cultivation emphasizes wisdom. So before making a start, should probably mention that just because there's only 10 things on the list, you might regard it as a short list, and it doesn't seek to trivialize any other sorts of conventionally good deeds that you probably already do in your lives, which haven't made it to the list. Okay, so if you are being an upstanding citizen and paying your taxes and taking your vitamins and looking after your parents and doing your chores around your home, or generally staying out of trouble, just because you don't see them on this list, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue doing them. So please carry on having ambition in life and working hard and avoiding being a disappointment to others, because they are also good. But these ones have been picked out as a short list because they are particularly effective. Okay. So these 10 merit accumulating practices, if we want to start with the generous ones, generosity or Dhammakaya includes giving beneficial gifts to others. And there are many different forms of giving, although gifts can mean giving to the poor or to the needy to generate merit. In this Buddhist context, more often, gifts are given to members of the monastic community or a temple. Typically, gifts of food, clothing, shelter, or medicine. The most basic act of generosity is to give a gift of something that is beneficial to the recipient, known as Vatutana. But it should be noticed that giving gifts of things like weapons or maybe alcohol would not lead to merit. Can you think why? Visit someone and give them a bottle of whatever. What's the problem? not up for questioning, okay, because it doesn't bring ultimate benefit to the person who goes on to use whatever you've given them. Let's say you give them a loaded gun. Next time they're angry, instead of just shouting at the person, they might shoot them instead. So that leads to more bad karma. And you get part of that karma because you supported them to do it. Yeah. So merit also of giving also can be generated by the gift of worldly knowledge or vocational knowledge, which would be known as vidyatthana. Giving spiritual knowledge, such as answering people's questions or giving people encouragement, which is known as dhammadhana, and also forgiving people. The word give is in there too, because you're letting go of anger, but it also includes something which you will see in Thailand, the release of fish or birds back into the wild from, let's say, the marketplace where they would normally be eaten otherwise, which is also included in that form of giving, so giving a longer life to those captured animals. Humility is a second way of cultivating generosity, especially that towards those of high virtue. If rather than finding fault with others, you are humble and respectful towards them, even without giving a single penny, you cultivate that spiritual energy inside yourself of merit. Why? Because at the very least, you'll always be the sort of person who will see the world in a positive light, and you open yourself up to receive many good things if you are open to seeing good in the things around you. Yeah? Showing respect generally often involves one of these. This is what's known as a home shrine for people who want to express their humility towards the Buddha or spiritual teachers. Buddhists generally tend to have one of these in one form or another. I did some research back in 2015 of Buddhists in the UK, and about 70% had shrine of some sort. So it symbolizes the practice of humility in a person's everyday life. Helping, volunteering, or service, technically known as vayamvachamaya, is helping others to do things which are obviously towards a good cause. So by good cause, I generally mean sort of an uncontroversial one. Would be seen as a way of cultivating merit, not by giving things, but by giving your time, your effort, a helping hand. Transferring merit, this is a little bit harder to understand, but merit arises for a person when they cultivate a good deed of some sort. Generally, it occurs only to the person who does the deed, but because it's something which is fluid and it's an energy, it can also be shared if that person makes the intention. And especially in the context of memorial rites for deceased relatives, often they pour water as a symbol of the outpouring of merit from one person to another, especially when that person is thinking about someone they love who has passed away, who they would like to have a share of the merit which they have cultivated in that day. And by sharing the merit, the total amount of merit doesn't decrease, it's not sort of subdivided, but it increases. Rather like taking one candle and lighting another candle off it, you actually increase the total brightness as a result of doing that. In the time of the Buddha, there was a certain king called Bimbisara, and he asked the Buddha whether it would be possible for deceased relatives to receive a share of the merit from any good deed which he happened to be doing. And the Buddha said it would be possible. So the next day, when the king offered a meal to the monks on behalf of relatives of his who had been born as, wait for it, hungry ghosts. Like, you know, ghosts? Well, you can probably imagine hungry ghosts. It's like worse, okay? But they were in a particular state of suffering. which is more than your general ghost, okay? And they had been getting in his dreams. So he wanted to be free of that, so he did this special food offering, and then he dedicated merit by pouring water. And at that time, when things were a little bit more open and obvious for everyone to see with the naked eye, those ghosts actually appeared, and after the merit had been transferred, then it appeared in a much better place, fully clothed, happy, bright, and contented, and went off to a new place that was no longer the realm of hungry ghosts. So far, so good. This is a beginner's course, right? Last but not least, rejoicing in merits. You would think that just by doing merits yourself, you would get merits, but in fact, if you are happy for other people who make merits, then part of the merit accrues to you as well. And this technically is known as pattanumotana maya, or rejoicing in the merit of others. And if you see someone else doing something good and you congratulate them on the fact rather than being jealous of them or thinking, they're just doing that to show off, to free yourself of envy in that way by saying sadhu or equivalent, which would English might mean well done or whatever, then merit also accrues to you, at least in part. So far so good. 5 ways of cultivating generosity. Self-discipline. There's only one in this category, which is keeping the precepts on various examples. It's known technically as sila maya. So it means basically avoiding taking advantage of the weaknesses in others or in yourself by your physical or verbal actions. Generally, the basic level of self-discipline practices involve keeping what's known as 5 precepts. 5 precepts? Can you name them for me? Not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not telling lies, and not taking intoxicants. Yeah? So by not doing things, actually merit arises for you. Just now we had, by doing a lot of things, merit arises for you. By stopping yourself from doing unwholesome things, merit also arises. Final category is that of meditation. And within this meditation category, we have meditation proper, which is known as bhavana maya. And that scope of meditation, apart from meditating like we've done, also includes reading Dharma books and chanting, Buddhist chanting as well. So meditation is basically a way of relaxing the mind internally and focusing the mind. And the inner radiance and the distancing of mind from anxiety actually leads to that inner energy arising more easily. A second way, also related to wisdom accumulation, is listening to Dharma talks, which I guess is what you're doing right now. Or these days they also have a lot of media online, which is about the same, except you get a monk in a box instead of one on a stage. So it supports self-improvement rather than just being a sort of an entertaining talk to listen to, hopefully. It ought to be something that challenges the people who are listening or inspires them or gives them a sense of urgency to work on themselves. So it's not just like a stand-up comic on a stage somewhere, but it should be something that it's not actually easy for that person to listen to, and it's therefore by sitting through a talk like that or a sermon, they actually get merit as a result. Not only listening to a talk, but if you are so inclined or so knowledgeable enough, you may be able to give such knowledge in that way to other people. Share your knowledge of spiritual matters with another person, known technically as Dhammadesana maya. So just as the Dharma sermon generates merit for the listener, if you want to turn it the other way around, the person giving the talk or giving the advice or giving that pep talk also gains merit on their side as well. Why? Because it's not just by talking about a whole lot of so-called virtues or ideals or having an academic knowledge of Buddhism, but you actually have to exemplify the things you are talking about to make your message hit home. So if you want to talk about patience when you're very obviously an angry person, then no one's going to buy it, okay? So you have to have developed the thing which you're talking about for it to be convincing to the listener. So this is the hard part about giving a Dhamma talk. If you can manage it, merit comes to you. Last but not least, and with many of the lists of things in Buddhism, generally the last one in the list tends to be the summum totem of everything that's gone before, or maybe the objective of all that's gone before. Sometimes it's not obvious how you can straighten out your views, or as they're technically known, dittu jukama. But it is a way of generating merit because it probably implies the end product of doing all the ones that have gone before, that in your mind something changes and becomes closer to seeing the world according to its reality. So seeing the world generally in a good light, or seeing life as an opportunity to work on yourself, to better yourself. So I will finish with a few little announcements. Our Tuesday evening generally runs every week between 7 and 8:30, half an hour meditation, half an hour wisdom talk. Every Thursday we also have a similar format with a slightly longer meditation of 45 minutes and also something more on Buddhism, even more than you have heard today. But as it is the festive season coming up and all sorts of variants on the horizon, we take the opportunity to take a break for Tuesday night classes from here on into the end of next year, restarting on the 11th of January. For the Thursday classes, the next class will be on the 16th, so next Thursday, not this Thursday, next Thursday will be the final one of the year, and then we take a break until the 13th of January on the Thursday night courses. As for the full moon meditations, we have one coming up on the 18th. Those continue both online and in person. Christmas doesn't manage to interrupt them. Online, we have a Saturday evening online meditation, which is shared throughout Europe in English, which happens between 7 and 8 every Saturday, either with myself or my colleague, Venerable Sander. His one next Saturday will be on the topic of the heart and the head, or another way of saying the 4 divine abidings. Yes. And our next full moon is for the 18th of December. We'll have a little meditation here, usually 45 minutes meditation, candle lighting, and a little talk on the theme to do with the particular full moon of that month. And the theme this time is family harmony in the holiday season. Last but not least, to encourage those of you who are new to meditation or maybe like to further your meditation, to meditate at home, there is an app which we have for that, which you can download for free onto your phone, Android or iOS, and you can listen to audio tracks of your favorite meditation teacher and time the length of your meditation while you're doing that, with quite a big selection, more than 100 at last count, of meditation tracks that you can listen to of different lengths. Yes, indeed. So for today, I will bring it to an end there, but if you have any questions, comments, or feedback at this time, then maybe Eva can host those for us now.
They'd like to share? No? Maybe a quick one from myself, and just to clarify, because I think us as lay people, in the, for want of a better word than the Western world, we see doing good deeds as just doing good deeds for the sake of it, without any gaining ideas, without expecting anything, without there being a reward as such, a merit to be bestowed upon us. How should we approach that then, and how should we think of it without that gaining idea?
There's a sort of attitude to doing good deeds, whereby, whether it's from a Buddhist background or not, it's acknowledged that a pure intention is important for a good deed. So doing a good deed for the right reason would be something that makes it more of a good deed. And I think you find that whatever background you come from. Sometimes it comes out, it's expressed in the idea of random acts of kindness, whereby people almost do sort of crazy stuff which they haven't planned in advance, very spontaneously, in the belief that that will somehow create a stronger amount of goodness in the world. None of this is wrong, but there is a sense in which if you love good deeds, then you also love yourself and a brighter future for yourself. But the way to achieve that is to actually be selfless in the way that you help others around you, especially if you're talking about generosity. So there is some truth in, yes, by doing it for its own sake, that is an important aspect of making it a good thing. But what you also see here is that there are other sorts of things which don't involve generosity that are also counted as a good deed. Whereas keeping the precepts, you might say, okay, you're doing it for yourself, keep yourself out of trouble. But in another way of looking at it, you could say you're doing it so that you don't take advantage of other people. Depends how you look at it. But it's still a good deed, however, where you look at it. Meditation, a little bit harder to justify in that sort of logic. You know, how can meditating help the world? Most people meditate because their mind is just like crazy, mixed up with panic and anxiety or whatever, so they're doing it for themselves. There are a few people who do it to make the world a sort of calmer place, but I think it's probably quite hard to find. So generally this sort of thinking comes from fairly biblical admonitions, such as don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, sort of thing, to make it a really good deed. You know, you must almost do it unconsciously in order that it be something where you're not doing it just for show. You're not doing it just for the recognition. And I think this is probably the major problem Wendy has with the word merit, that it implies that there needs to be someone there to see you doing it for it to be good, and therefore you're only doing it for the kudos. Whereas what I've been saying is it's like the stone you throw up in the air and you get it whatever way the stone comes down. If it doesn't come down again, then that's another story. But merit arises immediately, no matter what you think it is. But if you want to get the full merit, then doing it selflessly and doing it without thought of, oh, I want my name to be put up on a special plaque which everyone is going to see later on, or I need a film crew following me around to sort of record my every move. You may start out like that, but later on you start to enjoy goodness for its own sake, and those things become less important to you. So what you say has some truth in it, but it doesn't apply to all the categories of goodness, and it is based in a lot of assumptions from probably fairly Judeo-Christian understanding of helping the poor and needy as the main way of cultivating goodness in life. Yeah.
Thank you. think anybody else has any questions? No? Yes? No? Thank you. In that case, shall we pay respects to our teaching monk by bowing 3 times? Bow. Bow. Bow.
So may all of you be blessed with many merits in your life, both on the level of the mind, on the level of your lifestyle, on the level of your personality, and on the level of society now and forevermore.
Please pay respects to the Lord Buddha by bowing 3 times. Bow. Bow. Bow.